I'm just going to walk you through really quickly what I use. Standard KitchenAid, just to think any of them would work, to be completely honest. And I'm just using their roller attachments. I'm sure there are other ones out there, but these work fine for me. I don't think it matters a whole lot. You can pick up one of these for like 10 bucks on Amazon, or if you're not doing the Amazon thing anymore because you're not exactly great employers, wherever you want to pick up something like that. I found it really helpful to have a rack like that to kind of organize the dough as I'm rolling it. And it's made by NorPro, I guess, so cool. Eggs and two different kinds of flour, some AP flour and semolina. Semolina, you want to keep refrigerated or frozen. Actually, you really want to keep all your grains frozen so you don't get moths, but semolina flour is really helpful. I've not found a grocery store here in Kansas City that doesn't carry it. So cooking's always about ratios. And so the easiest way I think is to think each person gets an egg. And so if you're making pasta for 3 people, 3 eggs, and you get half a cup of flour per egg. So 2 eggs per cup, or however you want to think about it. I'm using about a 50-50 mix of semolina and all-purpose. I went a little shy on the semolina. It does not matter. Honestly, you're going to adjust the dough as it's mixing, so getting close is about what happens. So again, about half a cup of flour per egg per person. All that goes in. Forgot to mention that I'm going to add just a couple grinds of salt. I don't know, maybe half a teaspoon or so. And just a splash of olive oil. I think both things probably do more in my head than they actually do in reality, but I just do it because, well, olive oil and salt are never bad. All right, so you've got everything in the bowl. You could elect to come in here with a spatula and you'll just get the stuff incorporated a little bit. Although I'm truly one of the laziest people you've ever met. And so I'm just going to use the paddle and actually paddle it together really fast. So I'm just mixing it at, I guess, speed 2. And I'm just waiting for the dough to come together a little bit. Again, you could do this by hand. You could do this with a spatula. It doesn't really matter how you do it, just as long as that dough starts to form a mass. So I'm just using the dough hook on speed 2 now, and I'm just trying to let it come together. It seems to be sticking pretty hard, so just like normal, add a little flour until you get nice motion. So I added maybe, I don't know, 1/8 cup of flour, just a little scant handful. And I'll let the dough hook do its thing. That looks a little dry now, but as it kneads in, it should look good here in a bit. All right, it's been kneading for about 5 minutes now, maybe a minute more. You can see I've not added more flour or liquid or anything to it. It's starting to form a pretty hard ball, not really sticking too much anymore. And so I'm just gonna let it keep doing that for a little bit longer. So I pulled it out of the KitchenAid and you can see it's still a little tacky, like it still wants to hang on to the counter here without flour just a little bit, but it's not like holding my fingers or anything. It's not quite a pizza dough, but it's also not super sticky. There's a feeling to it that I would just call it Play-Doh. And so I'm just going to work that until I get all the KitchenAid enough out. So just hand knead it, which is hard with a foam, but get it into a ball and then wrap it in some plastic wrap, and that will keep it from drying out. So I'm ready to actually start making the noodles now. I've wrapped up my dough in some plastic wrap to keep it relatively same hydration the whole time for the process. And I'm going to divide this into, I don't know, 1/6 or whatever. It doesn't really matter. You're going to break it into some smaller pieces. Sure, I don't know, whatever. And grab a piece of that. And the rest of it's going to stay wrapped up in the plastic wrap. Don't have to refrigerate it. Don't have to do anything fancy with that. You just want to make sure that stays wet. And then I've hooked this up, and I'm going to set this to the widest setting possible. So on the top here, it's going to be, there you can see it, a 1, and I put a little bit of flour on top of it to keep things from sticking, although that's probably optional to be honest. Set this to 2, and it never runs at a speed besides 2. And take your little ball of dough and just get it in there and let it come through. And you'll get something like this. What you want to do is fold it into thirds, something like that. And then go the opposite way. So the creases are going to be fed in like that. And out it will come, and those creases will be relatively worked down. And you want to do that again. Take it, fold it into thirds, and work it down. And you want to do that on, say, setting number 1, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 times per little chopped piece of dough you've made. If you see it tearing or anything at the stage, or you see like holes forming, something went a little wrong. But in reality, it should just be this process a few times on level 1. And once you've done it, I don't know, as I said, 5, 6 times, once you've done it enough times that you feel like you've rolled this through and it's kind of homogenized that dough a little bit more, something like this, I'm just going to hang it up on the rack, like I said, and I'm just going to do the next one. One thing to notice, I didn't put anything on the bottom of this, so, that way if my hand accidentally were to travel down here, I'm not going to get it, So I finished that. 6 is probably too many times. 5 is probably enough. You can see they're just different sizes. And all we're going to do now is we're going to just take this, pull it out, and set it to the next one. Just go up 1. And same thing, just keeping it on 2. We're going to take one of these bad boys, and no more folding, no more rolling. We're just going to take it, and we're going to feed it in. And we're going to let it kind of do its thing. Kind of feed it from the top. It's hard with one hand. Let's try that again. Still will work, still tastes good. Let's try it with one hand here, a little more accurately. So we're going to feed it, let it go in, and as it comes through from the bottom, I'm just going to use your hand and kind of just let it drape and pull much better. Something like that. And no more folding, so as soon as I've done that, I'm just going to hang. Alright, so I've done it all at 2, and I'm just going to take this over and I'm going to set it up to 3. And again, we're not doing it multiple times, we're done with the folding. We're just going to take the piece of dough that we've done on 2, and now we're going to feed it on 3. And once it starts going, again, get your hand underneath and just kind of pull. And if you have something like this happen, where it breaks, no big deal. Just feed it in and try to support it from the top a little bit more, right? So one hand will be up here, feeding it down, and the other hand will be down here pulling it out. And you won't get that tear that way. But, if you do tear it, pasta's meant to have character, so now I've got little noodles. And we're going to do all of these on 3. So now I've done them all on 3, and they're all hanging up, and I'm just going to, I know this is shocking, go up to 4. And I'm going to choose a piece of dough, doesn't matter which one. Again, I'm going to kind of help it with my hand on the top, feed it in vertically, and as it comes out that bottom, I'm going to use my hand to help it come out. I'm not really pulling, I'm just helping guide. And there we are, now it's on 4. And so, just pick up my next piece of dough, the little piece that we broke off last time, sure that works. In it goes, and we'll roll it at 4, and it will come out a little thinner and a little longer. So repeat that for all. So those are all done and rolled at 4, which is my personal stopping point today. Although normally you'd roll them to 5 or 6. Again, no folding, no repeating. If they get super long, you can always cut them in half and roll them in 2 things. Or if you want super, super long noodles, hey, they can be kind of fun. Anyway, let's say you rolled to 5 or 6. You take a piece of dough and you'd use your cutter. Start with fettuccine, it's easier. Put it in your cutter like normal, put it on 2, choose a piece of dough, and just like you've been feeding it to make it longer, you're just going to feed this to it from the top. And as it comes down, you're feeding it down. And as the noodles come out, you're guiding them with your hands, right? And there you go, some fettuccine. And when you're done, if you caught them with your hands, you can just put them back over the top like this. And that way you don't have to worry about like flouring a surface and catching them and making little nests or whatever. This is ready to cook. Of course, that's not what I'm doing. I'm making pappardelle. To make pappardelle, I'm just using a pizza cutter and just cutting like 1/2-inch wide strips. And they're not going to be perfect, and that's okay. Part of the appeal of homemade pasta is that it is imperfect and has art. So once you've made your little cuts, the same game as before. You're just going to pick them up, being gentle but not crazy about it, and throw them over the top, and just rinse and repeat until you've got all your pasta. So I timed that. It took me 4 minutes to cut it with a pizza cutter. You'd probably be a little faster with the attachment. And again, really, I'd say start off with fettuccine. The spaghetti cutter never works quite as well for me. It likes to jam up. But anyway, if you were an awful person, you could dry this pasta like this, or you can just put it in boiling salted water for 90 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever, until it's al dente to your flavor, and be done with it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cook it up and dice up that nice looking fennel back there and, make something up here really. I went ahead and made a simple sauce. I just started with a pound of Semeca sausage and added like some onion and chopped up head of fennel. So just the white part of the fennel without the core. Just cooked it till it was wilted, added chicken broth and white wine, and just let it boil down, and added a little bit of Parmesan cheese. And then like we would add parsley, or I added the fronds from the fennel, because I like fennel, or whatever. But just make a real simple sauce, throw the pasta in the water for 2 minutes, and that's about it. You know how to cook sauces better than I do, so there you